Hello and welcome everybody to another episode of Pod Strickland. I'm your host Shwin, and it's episode 383. I am joined not by my co-host Stacy, who could not make this extremely important gathering of minds, but I am joined by you might know him as the man who sat courtside at the Kings game last night and was specifically shouted out by Monica McNutt for his extremely useful reaction to Malik Monk's dastardly attempt at trying to save a ball. But his name is James Marceda. You can follow him on Twitter at the Irishman he. Also the creator of the NBA injury report and also perhaps the greatest mind in the history of NBA 2K development. So, James, how are you doing?
That's all true. I'm doing great. Lovely to be here, Shwin.
It's very humble of you.
I mean, I tell it like it is, and so do you. And who am I to get in the way of the truth?
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing that other people, that a lot of us also forget is that you also were the host of the greatest basketball podcasts in the world, in the history of the world at one point.
That's true. Locked on Knicks. Their fans still aren't over the fact that Alex is running it now into the ground.
Yeah, Alex.
And I get it. There's only one me.
Yeah, I mean, Alex is just out there fucking being a loser, fucking just, I wear hats, so I'll do podcasts. Backwards, loser.
Yeah, I mean, he just he just podcasts so he can get tattoo money. That's what it's about for him.
Yeah, he's rocking the flat brims. It's like, come on, buddy, take the sticker off, pal.
He's
all
not
right,
wearing the Strickland dad hat. There we go.
All right. Well, before we get started, I do have to make a few announcements. The first being that Strickland has Instagram. Check that out. At Strick.Land Instagram. Post all kinds of new content there. Strickland also has a YouTube channel where you may be watching this podcast. If you have not done so already, please hit like, subscribe to the channel, leave us a comment. That'd be a huge help to us. The Strickland also has merchandise, which you can find on our website at www.thestrick.land. And you can find all kinds of great things there, like t-shirts, sweatshirts, hats, coffee mugs, water bottles, you name it, we've got it. And finally, the Strickland has a Patreon, which you can subscribe to. There are a number of different tiers. There's a $6 tier that gets you access to Pod Strickland, the podcast that I host every Friday with Prez. You also get access to Takes from Obvious Bozos, our news podcast that is hosted by Andrew Steele, a.k.a. Doug, along with Zach Blatter. And you also get access to the Strickland Discord with the conversation never stops. There are further tiers. There's a $9 tier that gets you access to Strickland Roll, my solo pod where I rant and rave with even more. You also get access to wonderful premium articles by Matthew Miranda, one of the best in the business. And now you also get access to Strictly NFL, which you guessed it, is our NFL podcast that is hosted by Constantine Metchkos. There are further tiers. There's a $15 tier, $30 tier, $58 tier, and $100 tier. Those come with a variety of additional benefits, like listening on pod recordings, merchandise discounts, and even potentially co-hosting the podcast alongside yours truly one day, whether you choose to subscribe or not. None of this would be possible without you. And none of this would be possible without Bet Online. Bet Online continues to be your number one source for all your basketball wagering needs, including pro and college hoops throughout the year. With up-to-the-minute odds, stats, and trends, you can follow your favorite team's path to the playoffs with in-game live betting, contests, and all the best player props. Experience the world's best wagering platform anytime from your desktop or your mobile devices. Head to Bet Online today to become part of a team, and remember to use promo code BELIEVE, BLEAV, for your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Bet Online. The game starts here. We've also got a great new sponsor. I love betting my friends and betting them on anything, sports, games, who's fast. That's what Cut allows me to do. The Cut app is a peer-to-peer social betting platform that's legal in 40-plus states. Cut has customizable odds, tracking capabilities, and an entire social network of group chats, user profiles, and rewards. All payments, no need for Venmo. What can we bet on? Well, I could have bet James yesterday on whether or not he would appear on television. And unfortunately, we did not. But if I had said, James, I don't think you have a face for TV, I don't think they're going to show you, I would have been wrong. I would have just been wrong and would have lost that bet. But unfortunately, James did not have the cojones to make that bet with me. So here we are. Use our promo code BelieveKnicks, BLEAV Knicks, for a 10% welcome deposit bonus. Don't forget that promo code. Again, it's BelieveKnicks, BLEAV Knicks. Cut, put your money where your mouth is. All right. So you went to this basketball game yesterday, which was a hell of a basketball game, I must say. Knicks win 98-91. Jalen Brunson scores 42 points on 28 shots. I don't even think that really gets to doesn't even cut to the fabric of the greatness of his performance. But But no, I mean it was a truly great performance from him, and kind of thought honestly that I thought it was the win of the year for the Knicks in a lot of ways. What were your? I mean, that game was super physical. I think that was really apparent to us watching that TV. How did it feel like? I mean, look, this isn't even like you were just at the game. You're fucking right there. If anybody doesn't know this, I'm not joking. There's a picture I posted because James was quite literally on TV sitting fucking courtside. So he's sitting courtside. So how was that experience? But also how like physical was the? How did you get a sense of like, holy shit, this is like definitely more physical than any average NBA game?
Yeah, well, I mean, so first of all, sitting courtside is like, I'm a jaded, crusty old man, and like nothing makes me smile anymore outside of my baby, of course, because I am the world's best father. But like when you sit courtside, I mean, I did it for the first time last year. My company has amazing tickets. It does like I feel
you just buy courtside seats because you're
yeah. I need to set the record straight. Not balling like that. Just barely paying my mortgage and childcare. But do get to sit courtside once a year. There's like no other Knicks fans at my company, so that's like a huge benefit. I just get them now
like
when they
a
show up.
lousy company to me.
Yeah, it's lousy with people from
rules on the West Coast over there.
There's a lot of West Coast people and then a lot of computer programmers who are from like all over the world, but those people are not Knicks fans.
They might not even be basketball fans. They're just there for the paycheck.
Well, yeah, there's some of them. No, you know who you are. I'm not going to name you by name.
Not in 2K.
Well, it is funny because until I worked here, like I always had a job that I didn't care about at all, and but now like I care deeply about it because I'm a huge basketball fan, obviously. But it's funny to see the other people. I'm like, oh, you're me. Like you're me from before when I didn't care about my job like that. But anyway, yeah. So the courtside's amazing. It is funny. Like sometimes you literally the seats are almost too good. I had my view blocked by the ref a few times. I'm like, move out of my way, or like someone who's just like standing on the wing, and you're trying. Even a player, you're like trying to see the game. You're looking around them. But the physicality.
Does it smell really bad?
No smells, actually. I'm always kind of amazed by that. Burke's butt was in my face a couple times inbounding the ball. I welcomed him back to the team, and he kind of like turned around and like gave me a thanks of acknowledgement. I don't think people have been too nice to him. So I said, welcome back, Alec. It's good to have you. And he was like, yeah. He just kind of like gave me a little nod. Physicality, though. I was on the ref's ass all night. I'm here as a guest. These aren't my seats. I'm trying not to like do anything too insane, but they were like when you're sitting there, like you see the contact so much better than you do on TV, and you hear it too. And everyone was just. It was a really rough physical game. I felt that way last year too. Like the Kings kind of play pretty physically. I feel like Sabonis is a load. If there's one thing that's like I don't know, maybe he's overrated or whatever, but like you don't realize how tough he is, like just physically, because he's white until you see him in person. But he's strong. Like going up, Julius didn't play yesterday, but like last year he did, and I'm like, oh man, this guy like can bang with Randall like pretty effectively. I think he's a little taller, but he's a thick boy. But yeah, I was not a fan of the refereeing last night. I thought they were letting the Kings get away with stuff that they weren't letting the Knicks get away with.
It almost feels like to what you're talking about with the Kings. It almost feels like because they're a bad defensive team that they let them get away with like more physicality than they would another team. But in general, like I see, like it was a really poorly officiated game as far as I'm concerned. But very specifically, my issue is like I don't think that they did. I thought they let the Knicks play physically yesterday. That was not my problem with the game. But like, there's a difference between, like, to me, the level of contact they allowed the Knicks to get away with and whatever yesterday. I was fine with that. Like, there were some calls where I'm like, oh, that's a bad call. There were some calls where I'm like, can't believe the Knicks got away with that one. So like, I was like, all right, that's like fine. But I just thought the Kings the entire game were allowed to just do way too much. And like very specifically, it just feels like, and this isn't just this Kings game, but like this recent stretch of games, it just feels like every time Brunson's bringing the ball up the floor, these opposing teams are just fucking like all over him. They're like, hitting him. And it's like, and I've talked about this, but it's like, it's fine. So like, I mean, yesterday, I can't believe he only got 4 free throws. That's nuts. And 2 of them were intentional, right? The 2 were like literally intentional. One was a tech. One was a tech. The other was an and one. The other one was an and one. They had to call it. Like they could not call it because then it would have been obvious what they were doing. But like, it's not like I think generally his free throw attempts have been solid, but like there's fouls other than on shot attempts. Like you're allowed to call those too, and actually a lot of those are the ones that, you know, the fear of allowing physicality into the game, right? Is that like, well, you're gonna like ruin the flow of the game, and it's just gonna become this defensive shit show. And it's like, look, there is a danger of that, but part of how you combat that is to call stuff early in the game that's like, hey, you can't just assault Jalen Brunson when he's bringing the ball up the floor. Like Domantas Sabonis, you cannot fucking molest Isaiah Hartenstein every time he's trying to run a dribble handoff at the top of the key. And I thought those 2 things were like ridiculous the entire game. But like, I don't know, like aside, like I think those 2 guys have got really a shitty whistle. And I thought the Kings got some soft calls, but like I think you should expect some of that when you're on the road. But I don't know. Like
it just seemed arbitrary. Like that was the thing that was annoying. Like I didn't understand why a whistle would happen when it did, even though overall, yes, they were like letting them play. And there was a couple like it was almost like that flagrant against Hart. Like Dante went over to explain to the ref right afterwards, and I saw it too. I was yelling at the ref like a Nick had gotten hit in the face like incidentally like 2 or 3 times already by then, and they didn't review it to give him a flagrant. I mean, those flagrants are like insane and arbitrary always, so I don't think that was like necessarily against the Knicks or whatever, but they've been doing that with flagrants for years now, where it's just kind of like, all right, we're going to decide this one was a dangerous play or whatever the phrasing is that they use on it.
Well, the weird thing to me was like nobody on the Kings was even asking them to review it. Like literally nobody was like in the ref's face. Keegan Murray got up and was just like grimacing a little bit and then just like was walking to the free throw line. And then Kenny Albert, I mean, obviously you don't know this because you weren't watching it. You were at the game, sorry. But on the broadcast, Kenny Albert was just like, he's like, I guess they're reviewing it now. So that was definitely an interesting one.
Well, and there was like another one. Like I think this was in the 3rd quarter. Like a ball went out of bounds, and like I think it was Alex Len. Is he on the team? Who's their big oaf? Who's
it's Alex Len. Which I can't believe he's still in the fucking league.
He's amazing. I was like, wait, is that Alex Len? I remember you. He just like jumped over Hart's back. He like landed on top of him. Yeah. It's like you can call a loose ball foul. Like you're allowed to.
Hart went to the ref right after that, right? I think he like went to the ref. And was like,
yeah, like he like landed on his neck with all of his like 7'2" body. It was like
his disgusting European, his disgusting foreign body.
You said what I couldn't. Thank you.
But yeah, like it was just weird. And there was one late in the 4th quarter. So Monk hits that 3 in the corner to cut the lead to 4, 91-87. But right before that, if you watch it, like, because Burks misses a 3, Bogdanovich for the first, like, amazingly somehow had gotten inside position, had boxed out. He had the fucking rebound, and I think it was Harrison Barnes. Harrison Barnes just like tackles him, and they don't call it. And like you see Bogdanovich and Hartenstein just losing their fucking minds. They're like, "Are you kidding me? Like you have like that. You have to call that one. That's like, that's not like you were letting them play."
Like, right. Although there was a couple times where I don't think Bojan has the most lower body strength. There were a couple times he was in box out position and just got like belly bumped like 5 feet forward by whoever was behind him.
He has a really good. You tried. He has a really good aggrieved at the call face.
Yeah, that's the Eastern Europe.
He looks like it. Like his expression is like, "How could you do this to me? Like how could you do this to me?
It looks like someone who's disappointed in their child. It's like, how could you pursue a career in art? Like, we're from whatever war-torn Eastern European country we're from. How could you do this to me?"
But yeah, like but it was. I mean, again, so you're at this game. Like, what was the like? Because after the game, I don't know if you saw the interview yet that Brunson did with MSG right after. But he like went out of his way to kind of be like, like this arena's awesome to play at. Like their fans are awesome. Was like the atmosphere pretty buzzing yesterday in that game?
It was. I have a hot take that I'm pretty much 99.9% sure that they pump in noise sometimes.
I'm sure they do. Yeah.
Like there was like maybe all teams do this now. I don't know. I don't go to like too many games, but like there were a couple times where they're like, everyone get loud, and all of a sudden you're like, whoa, like turn the volume down a little bit. Like this is clearly fake. But no, they
like
do have
AC/DC blasting.
Yeah, well, yeah, they start playing music, but then it's like the roar comes in where you're like, all right, this is like coming from like one direction up here in the center of the ceiling. But no, the atmosphere was like intense from the tip off, and like it was actually, I don't know, in the good seats, everyone's life is like, they're all happy. No one's mad. I don't know what it was like in the upper deck, but like there was a lot of friendly like jawing back and forth with like Knicks and Kings fans, and like it was a good time because the Knicks won, but it was the same last year when I went when the Knicks lost. I like their fans, which is kind of a weird thing to say.
No, I mean they've been through a lot.
Speaking,
they've been through a lot, just like us.
Well, someone explained it to me also. It's like that's their only team. Like they don't have like that's like their life.
Yeah, because when it comes losers.
Because they're losers. No, but it was intense, and it was obviously it was close the whole game. I was early on. I was wishing Julius was there. Just could have used a little extra firepower. Those bench units, like people were saying, Bogey and Burks look good, and I guess they were like okay, but I was like white knuckling it for like every bench minute. It really drove home. Like I don't see games as much as I used to these days, but like everyone obviously talks about the need for like a bench point guard to help the offense run, and like that was like it's Hart does a decent job. Like he does really well for like who he is as a player and like initiating and creating, but like those are some rough. I don't know if they won those minutes or what, but it just felt like it was they were stealing time anytime that those guys were out there and able to like not give up a ton of points.
Yeah, no, they actually did end up winning those minutes.
Did they?
Mostly,
okay.
Yeah, they did. It was surprising, but like, I think, like I like the way I feel like when I watch them, and I'm like, I can just feel the lack of speed. Like it's just like very slow. The groups are like really slow. They're methodical. They can't get easy buckets. There's no easy buckets to be had. It's all like you've got to work super fucking hard for everything.
They also had Precious on Sabonis. Like Sabonis was playing with the bench, and like that was just. I mean, Precious is playing great, but that's not a good matchup for him.
I mean, Sabonis is strong as hell, so he just was able to kind of like big boy him a few times there. But yeah, I mean, I guess like did you come away from that game feeling any differently about anybody or anything on the Knicks?
That's a good question. I don't think so, really. It kind of just confirmed that. I mean, OG didn't have the best game, but I was really impressed with the Knicks defense overall. It just felt like they were. I don't know how many steals they had, or it felt like they were constantly tipping balls and disrupting the offense.
8 steals. They had 8 steals and 9 blocks yesterday. Pretty great.
Okay. Yeah. It was great watching Hartenstein in person. He had like a couple monster blocks that were like really impressive. And it's funny, like Brunson, I didn't know he had 40 points until I went home because like you're not looking like when you're that close, the stats are you gotta look like straight up at the ceiling to see like who's scoring what. But it was clear he was awesome. I'm like, oh, Brunson's incredible.
Well, if you're not glued to your calculator, you just appreciate the game for what it is. Yeah, like I was pretty impressed with. I thought like Brunson just the way he started the game. I don't think he started the game well. He like turned the ball over 3 times really early. Mm-hmm. It felt like he was getting really flustered with the officiating right from the jump of the game. Yeah. And I don't really know what happened between him going to the bench for the first time and then coming back in the game. But when he came back in, he just came back in and was like, I don't give a shit what you guys are calling or not calling. I'm going to get fucking buckets right now. And I just thought and like to the team in general, I think maybe took after that. But like that was a game where you could have easily seen them kind of lose their way a little bit because they're just getting so frustrated with the officiating. And they didn't, right? Like they
Yeah.
They kind of they stuck in and they stayed focused on the actual game in hand.
And they weren't shooting well to start too. Like that could have got on them. And I was like, oh, here we go again. Because last year they were like, I think they were coming off like a long winning streak, and then they just like they'd been playing really well and they missed all these shots. I was like, oh crap.
And Brunson got hurt in that game. Brunson got hurt in the first half.
Right. Yeah.
So then your hero RJ Barrett played well in that game. So
look at that efficiency, man. Yeah, I think the Brunson thing was interesting when he came back. I bet Rick was probably yelling at him on the bench, giving him some fatherly tough love. Tired is for the weak, you pussy. And everyone's like, oh, what a beautiful father.
Stop being a fucking bitch. We didn't have this shit in the 90s. Yeah, you guys were all on fucking crack, Dad. You and Anthony Mason were doing lines off a hooker in the bathroom, but at halftime. Like, what do you? I know that. I know what you're doing.
Power, Mace. Rest in power.
But like, this is the thing I really wanted to know. You know, so you've now been to. Is this your third Knicks Kings game that you've been to?
The second one. The first was last year. Yeah, I saw them play the Warriors in Chase Center also last year.
So can you describe in detail for our listeners Tom Thibodeau's aura?
You know, like I felt like me and Tom were one, basically. Like I was seeing things through his eyes. You know, it is funny. Like when you watch him on TV, you're like, "Relax, Tom. Like, calm down." But every time he was upset, I was right there with him. I was like, "No, I see it now. I see it through these courtside goggles, and you know what you're doing."
Did you get to hear a couple of Jesus fucking Christ?
No, unfortunately, because I was on the other side. Like I was like the opposite court from the bench, and yeah, it was pretty loud in their stuff. So I didn't really hear anything from the bench, from Tom, unfortunately. Me and him were both very mad with that technical foul that wiped out an open
Oh my God. That was crazy. I couldn't believe that.
Yeah.
Well, and it's especially stupid because they did the right thing initially by letting them like play the transition, right? So it's like, okay, I'm gonna call this tech on you. I already know this, but I'm not gonna fuck over their advantage. And the advantage was about to lead to a layup, and he's like, you know what? Enough. Enough.
I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like they do a lot of that stuff. Like there have been just some insanely late calls the past like few years. I feel like where they just kind of wait until like, oh, the ball didn't get in, and I see that he's on the ground now. So even though it's like 10 seconds after the shot went up and the foul may have happened, I'm going to call it. Like they do a lot of that kind of like retroactive shit. This was kind of the opposite, I guess, of that. But yeah, I don't know where I'm going with that other than clean it up, refs. Clean it up. I did
Drain the swamp.
I did ask what the over was at one point. I gave him the Rudy Gobert money hand gesture.
So you asked them what the over was in a 98-91 game.
Yeah, this is earlier in the game. It made a little bit more sense.
How much money do you have on the over, pal? Are you kidding me? You're doing a terrible job if I have money on the over.
But I like it's funny. I think they get a little confused when there is a away fan in the front row yelling shit at them, like the players and the refs. A couple times gave me like just puzzled looks. They're like, "What?"
Yeah, you're also with your wife. You're like, "Are you good?" She's just like, "Oh my God, stop, please."
Yeah.
How was the food? How was the food? You saw you had some little...
Yeah, I had some prime rib. My wife's was a little overdone, I gotta say. So clean it up, King's Kitchen staff.
Do you want to talk to? Maybe you can just talk to Vivek about that.
I actually did see him. He was there. He was shaking someone's hand who was sitting next to me early on.
Were you
I had a lamb lollipop that was delicious. I had some sushi, some toro, some tuna belly. It was really good. Nice. It was not sustainably farmed, I'm sure, so they need to clean that up. But tuna's not on the green list. You're not supposed to eat that like that.
How was your old fashioned?
Yeah, definitely had 3 or 4 of those. Yeah, I think I'm holding it in my hand when I'm fending Malik Monk off of my pregnant wife as he came barreling toward us, and I
Yeah,
kind
as
of
he
just do like
was.
this karate chop to like
I
move
mean,
him away.
basically as he was assaulting her. Really, I mean,
Yes,
the league should look into that.
like right before that play. Actually, he did the thing where he like pointed to his eyes and then pointed to my wife. And he said, "I'm coming for your pregnant ass." And I was like, "That seems. I don't know what that means exactly, but I'm going to keep
I'm
my
not
eyes
sure
on
we want
Malik."
that in our league, our league.
But yeah, I gotta clip that, or if someone I don't know how to clip stuff. Someone needs to clip the audio of Monica McNutt literally shouting me out. You referenced it in the intro, but I just watched the replay before I got on the pod, and she's like, "Shout out to the Knicks fan on the front row who 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 definitely does not try to catch Malik Monk, but doesn't try to harm him either." And if you watch the replay, because I'm in just like protect my pregnant wife mode, so I'm like, I sort of just like shove him away instead of like welcoming him into my arms. But like that, who would do that anyway? I don't know. Like I don't think your instinct is to like bear hug a guy when he's barreling at you. I don't know.
So I
Depends.
mean, not
Depends
only are
on the
you the
guy.
world's not only are you the world's best father, but you're also the world's best husband.
That's what I'm trying to say. Yeah.
And I think that's really the big takeaway from yesterday's game for me. You know,
Mm-hmm.
um, so do you like? All right, so whatever this game happens, obviously the Knicks win.
Yeah.
Now that you've kind of seen how this team has developed, over the course of the season, obviously they make the big trade for OG, they make another trade for Boyan and Burks, and I always feel like getting a chance to see a team live gives you a different experience. Like, not that
Mm-hmm.
it changes everything, but it is like a different thing. Did you get there? I'm assuming you got there early because you had like the primo seats and everything. So
Yeah. We got there at like 5:30.
okay,
The
so
game
like,
started at 7.
I mean, so you got a chance to see these guys warm up and everything. Do you feel like, I mean, the way that everything that you've seen out of this team, do you feel like they're carrying themselves as a team that believes and should rightfully believe that they are a contender?
Yeah, I mean, it feels like that. They seem to have a really good mix of like I don't know, like having fun with each other, but not being like unserious losers. Because
Yeah.
that's a line, right? Like you don't you have to like allow people to like enjoy life, but like when it's time to like work, it's time to work. It's like there was a little bit of like I saw like Dante was like guarding Precious in warm-ups and they were like laughing about something. And but then like there wasn't
But then Thibs went over and was like, "Are you guys fucking
he was like,
smiling?"
knock it off. Well, just the way I don't know. They were always like I've been to a lot of games where it's like it almost seems like the guys just like don't even talk to each other if they're like not on the court. You know, like they sit on the bench and then it's like whatever, they're watching the game together and like maybe they've spent time with each other outside the work, maybe they haven't. But like the Knicks always seem like they were kind of like strategizing with each other. I mean, the Villanova guys, you did see that a lot. Like Hart and Brunson and DiVincenzo were like just kind of always like talking to each other about things they saw. And yeah, I don't know if I can say that like yeah they carried themselves like they knew they were contenders, but I did like the way they carried themselves. I mean, I do think that they're definitely contenders with everyone healthy. Um, me and I have this like I guess it's I want to like clarify something that we like thought about in Discord once, where I was like they might need time to gel. It's like when it comes to like their playoff performance, because like everyone was like rightfully bummed by all the injuries, and I kind of had this perspective where even though I do think they are contenders, because this is the first year with this roster, I don't know. There's like a big part of me that like just wouldn't be shocked if they need like a season of like the. I'm very like old school eye test boomer when it comes to like playoffs and like it's a different thing, and like I wouldn't be shocked if they just kind of need to like take a couple lumps with like this group in the playoffs before they really are like, okay, now we're expecting them to win a championship. But obviously, those games with OG and like all their numbers and everything like show that that's like they performed at a best team in the league kind of level. So you have to respect that. I also think there's a degree to which like that was a new team for other people too, so they hadn't been like fully game planned against. Like I think there's like a little bit of that where like what did they go 14-2 in those first games with OG, and like whatever pace that is, like I don't think they're a 75 win team or whatever necessarily, but yeah, I don't know, like, but at the same time, like if everyone's healthy and Julius, with all this help.
Oh, was Julius was there, right?
I didn't see him honestly, but I think he was there. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was too locked in on the action.
Yeah, you're too focused.
I was diagramming. I was like, "Come on, that's not how you run a pistol set." I was keeping these guys sharp. Set the screen. They got to believe you're setting the screen.
Yeah, make contact. Don't slip it. Just fucking get on the court during a timeout. Right here.
Last year, we got like soft kicked out of the game when it was over because my wife like laid down on the court and I was taking pictures of her. We were like, and some woman came over. She's like, "Absolutely not. You need to leave. Like, you need to go right now." Like the game was already over.
But why was that like the thing?
I don't know. It's weird because everyone is just standing around and like, yeah, it's a little silly to like, she like laid down and like put her head like on her hand kind of thing, which is like. I guess you don't want everyone doing that. Maybe they thought we'd start a trend, but yeah, I was a little like, all right, this woman's drunk with power. Like, we didn't do it during the game.
Oh, that's the line? That's the line?
Yeah.
Absolutely not.
Absolutely not. I was like, okay, sure. I'll leave.
Yeah, I mean, I think when it comes to contending, it's like, obviously, without Randall, I don't think there's like it is what it is. Like they can maybe win a playoff series without Randall, but they have no chance of contending without him. Yes. And I know that like obviously he's had his playoff foibles, but like we need to see if he can do it with this roster because this is the best roster they've had. Yeah. I think like even yesterday, you could tell OG's shot was like kind of fucked up. You could see him; he didn't trust his elbow. He was short on almost all of his threes. Mm-hmm. He's got to work through that. Obviously, it's like part of the recovery. So I'm not really like, I mean, I'm worried about it insofar as like, I hope it doesn't last long. But like
he got the surgery, right? So presumably whatever was in there has been cleaned up, and it's literally just like getting it feeling right. Like I don't. Right?
Yeah.
Like he's
it's like you have to strengthen it again and all that stuff, right? So it's like, look, he's got to get his numbers up, got to just get it going.
Those are rookie numbers.
Those are rookie numbers, OG. You got to pump those up, baby. But yeah, like I think it's hard though because contending is just like not. I mean, before the season started, I don't think anybody was under the impression that the roster was in a position to contend. It was more like, all right, let's just keep it. Let's maintain kind of where we established ourselves last year, and and we'll evaluate it. But like, obviously, you make the trade for OG, it changes the calculus of the team because one, I think you don't make that trade unless you think you have the potential to compete, and then obviously, we're 15-2 with him. We had that 13-2 month. When you see that, it has to change the kind of like expectations and standards for what you expect of the team. Now, again, if Randall's hurt, none of this matters. Like if Randall's hurt, then he's hurt and you're just trying to win a playoff series and that's fine. But like if Randall comes back, I think they have to hold themselves to a higher standard. And that opens up some interesting like conversations because, like if Randall plays like shit, does that mean like you have to, I mean, it's like, are you at the point now where you're like, hey, I understand you fucked up your shoulder pretty bad and whatever, but like this could be your third time in the playoffs where you're playing like complete shit. Like at some point we need you to just be good. And if you can't show us that, even with mitigating circumstances, we have to kind of make a decision. that maybe involves you not being part of this team long term moving forward. The other part is, we know Tom Thibodeau's in the last year of his contract because the team has become as good as it is, which is a credit to him as well. But like they have more talent. That has to change kind of like what you're hoping and expecting of the team. Like what is the expectation for him if this team is healthy? Like I mean, all of this depends on seeding and matchups and blah, blah, blah.
Right.
But like, I think it's almost fair to say that if the team is healthy going into the playoffs, assuming, and that includes, the Randall of it all.
Does that not include Mitch to you? Just curious.
I think Mitch,
because of how good like Hart and Precious have been, is that kind of like not a thing
yeah,
anymore,
I don't think that one matters as much to me. Not because Mitch isn't good, but because it's like
sure,
that's probably the one position where losing your top end starter doesn't hurt you as much as anything else on this team, right? Like you can't lose Brunson and be the same. You can't lose OG, be the same. Maybe Dante. Even then, I think losing Dante would hurt you because then it's like you're starting Hart, which is weird. And then obviously Randall, which we have already seen, right? Like you can't
replace him. Yeah.
So
all right. That makes sense.
Like I think the standard almost at that point has to be you have to at least get to the second round. You have 100%. To at least get to the second round.
Yeah.
And again, like it depends on seeding and blah, blah, blah. But I mean, do you feel like that's an unfair expectation? Or do you think that and
no.
If he fails to meet that, do you think that's a justifiable reason to move on from him as coach? Or do you think he should have enough credit in the bank that you're like, hey, okay, you can use that as a kind of demerit against him? Like, okay, this is a clear fuck up, but you've done enough over the totality of 4 years that we're going to bring you back, whatever. You're going to have to give him an extension if he stays, right? Because you can't have him be a lame duck coach with 1 year left on his contract. Even if that means a 1 year extension, you got to give him something. But would you at least give him that 1 more year in that scenario, or do you think it's time to move on at that point?
I mean, it would really depend like how it went down, right? But when you're talking about like what the front office is going to do, I can't imagine that Thibs wouldn't be back next year. And like they'd have to get like swept in the first round, and he like refused to play Brunson for a whole game because he didn't like hustle hard enough during practice or something. Like you would have to do something so phenomenally stupid while losing in the first round. And if they're healthy, I just don't see that happening. I guess because if they're healthy, you're presuming that they at least have their current roster. Then they're adding Julius sometime soon. So like they're probably not going to fall into like a play-in or like 7-8 seed situation and then have to play like the Celtics or someone like that in the first round, But if, I don't know. It's like Thibs is sort of like the Randall of coaches a little bit. Like the Knicks are clearly much better off for having him, but it really is like what is going to happen when the chips are down in the playoffs, where you have to make adjustments, where you have to be smart, where you have to be able to like improvise and change what you're doing if it's not working, not just doggedly stick to it, right? That's the thing that people are worried about with Thibs. So like, I don't know, but he's also like done, like he has changed over time in some ways. He's not the exact same coach he was 10 years ago or 5 years ago, so I don't know. Yeah, but overall, I would just be shocked if he wasn't back next year. But that would all just depend on what happens in the playoffs. Like it would have to be a tremendous failure for him not to be back, and I just don't see that happening.
Interesting.
You think? So you wouldn't? You think it's like kind of. If they lost, if they lose in the second round, that's a real different conversation.
No, if they lose in the second round, I think like even if I don't think you can actually fire him if they lose in the second round, just because you can't be like, oh, they like lose. Okay, you get to the second round. Presumably, one of your opponents. It'll be one of Boston, Milwaukee, and I don't know. Trying to think of who else I would actually. Honestly, so this is the problem for me. Those are the only two teams, right? Or maybe the Heat. Okay, so let's say the Heat. Those are the three teams. Let's say those are the three teams you're worried about potentially facing, right? I just think, to me, losing to the Heat again is a fireable offense if you're healthy. Like, I genuinely feel that because I thought I would have fired him after that series last year, and I still stand by that. I thought he coached an atrocious series, and I thought he lost like every margin you could win, and you still had a chance to win that series. That to me, that just, and yeah, I understand. Quickly played like shit even when he played. Randall was obviously terrible. Nobody could make a shot in Game 6. I understand there are mitigating circumstances, but like, look, man, when your entire team's offense, they were the number 3 offense in the league last year in the regular season. Obviously, the playoffs are different, but when your entire team's offense craters in the playoffs to the degree the Knicks did, to me, that probably speaks to some type of systemic coaching issue. And this has been an issue for his teams throughout his career, is that they drop offensively significantly in the playoffs.
That was a little tricky, only because like so much of their offense was, grabbing offensive rebounds, and then you've got Bam in the second round, and not those 2 stick boy weaklings on Cleveland. And Bam's allowed to like rip guys' arms out of their sockets for some reason.
Who may as well be European.
They're honorary Europeans.
I hope everybody listening to this understands this is purely just
yes.
This is not
all the Europeans we're joking about could grind me into dust if they want to right now. But Bam's allowed to like just do whatever he wants and like chop guys' heads off, and it's fine. So, but I mean, to your point, it's like if you are the number 3 offense, there's probably some pivots that you're not making. I mean, I can't remember it well enough to get into all the tactics, but I think that's reasonable to be like, yes, they should have been able to, figure out a couple things.
And I just.
So when would you fire him this year? So you're saying if they lost to Miami.
If they lost to Miami, to me, that's like if they lose to Milwaukee, I still think there's a scenario. Like, I think they're better than Milwaukee, but obviously they have Giannis, right? So there's just a scenario where Giannis is like Giannis, and you're like, all right, well, what are we gonna do?
Maybe if Dame is saving it a little bit for the playoffs. I don't know if he gets that LeBron benefit of the doubt because he is just old at this point.
Yeah, and he's also never been a particularly like. He's had these couple
Dame
awesome
time, baby. He points to his wrist.
His overall playoff resume is actually like pretty bad. Yeah.
But he stared at the camera.
I think if you lose to Milwaukee, you just kind of, right. You have to accept it a little bit. Like, you have to just kind of take that one and go with it. But if you lose, if you lose to Boston, Boston is the most talented team in the league, in my opinion. They should at least, at the bare minimum, I think they should win the East. They should be the favorite to win the East anyway. If you lose to them, I think it's no harm, no foul. I actually think the Knicks have a chance to make that at least a competitive series, but we'll see. But to me, Miami is just I think we're better than Miami. Like, we're a better team. We have better talent. Yeah. We have good matchups against them. We have better size across the board. Like, to me, that's just a matchup where you have the advantages. Again, all of this is assuming Randall's healthy. And I think Brunson's the best player in that series. So if you're the best player in the series, you have the best talent. To me, not winning a series like that 2 years in a row is a fireable offense.
Do you have a specific thing that you're worried Thibs will do to screw them over in that series? Like, is there a lineup you're worried he's going to use too much, or is it just a general outfoxing by Spo?
My concern is just not using, not being willing to play small ever is really my main concern with him.
Yeah.
Because I think with OG and Hart, especially after having gotten OG, you actually can try Randall at the 5 lineups. Like, you can try them. There's nothing wrong with that. I understood it a little more previously when we didn't have OG. Why you would not. Well, I understood the unwillingness because the general size of the team wasn't there. But now that you have OG, and also even if you don't want to go 5 out, you can play Precious at the 5. You can have more mobile, switchy lineup out there. So that's my main concern, and it is my main concern because I actually I forgot who did we play? Not Portland. When we played Philly, and we obviously lose that first game against them, and then we smoked them last time in OG's first game back. But when after the game, Thibs had obviously did his press conference, They had a pretty interesting quote. Not an interesting quote, but he just kind of like, we all knew the things he cares about, but he like blatantly said it. He was just like, the things you can always do is like, you can always rebound the ball. You can always protect the ball, like not turn it over. And you can always defend well as a team. And obviously all that stuff is true. Like, yes, you can always like do those things, but no coach like literally enforces those three beliefs in every single lineup decision he makes the way Tom Thibodeau does. And to me, like, there's obvious strengths to that because your team has a clear identity and, they know exactly what they are at all times. But there's also some limitations where, like, if you're never willing to risk, like, okay, maybe this lineup can't rebound at a high level, but they're going to spread the ball out. They're going to spread the floor, and that gives us an advantage a different way. It's that rigidity specifically where it's like every lineup has to meet these three criteria at a high enough benchmark for him to be willing to use those lineups. And he's never willing to kind of like rob Peter to pay Paul. Right. Which, it's not wrong necessarily. Like I thought it was weird when people were criticizing him for using Jericho Sims in these two center lineups when Randall and OG were out. Cause I'm like, well, I would get that if like Bojan and Burks weren't playing like absolute fucking assholes, but they are. So like he kind of like has to just pick poison. His pick is poison one way or the other. Like, do you want to have bad spacing or do you want to like maybe have two guys that are just playing like absolute assholes and giving you nothing on defense? So like it's tough, but that to me is like my main concern against Miami, because the one thing Spoelstra will do is Spoelstra absolutely will, he will be kind of flexible, and he'll be tactically flexible, and he will, he'll switch things up, and he's not, and it's, can Thibs adjust quick enough and adapt quick enough? And at this point, he has we're at full health. He has the options. He has the overall talent. He has the different looks to throw at teams at his disposal. It's about if he's willing to do it or not. And if he's not willing to do it, to me, that's a really big red flag. And that's probably my bigger, like, if you want to say like, there's scenarios in any outcome where you might want to keep him, you might want to fire him. I think the underlying concern I have is like, will he be willing to use those different tactically flexible options?
I'm not even saying that this, I don't think I like believe in this viewpoint of what I'm about to say, but is it possible that with this roster fully healthy, they actually now just have the team that allows him to be insane that way? And because they're almost like the optimal Thibs roster, and he can do that, and it's not going to bite them in the ass. Like, because he was coaching like he coaches during that streak when they were, the best team in the league, right? I know they didn't play everybody, but they had a bunch of wins against like really good teams. I don't remember who some of the, I can't even tell you who any of them were, but there were some good ones. I know that. Do you think is it possible that Leon has Thibs proofed the roster when healthy?
I thought about actually. So before Randall got hurt, so the last time we were fully healthy, that was like the first time I had watched a game. A little high, in a long time. I just had not watched a game start in a while, and it's like when you're watching a game and you're like, I see all the angles, like sure. Everything makes sense, everything is perfect. But like you're watching it. And I remember watching it, and I was like, my main takeaway after that game, even after Randall, like, you like Randall got up, and it was so weird on the broadcast. Or like, I'm not sure what's wrong. I'm like, well, you can see that his shoulder is literally broken. Like, what do you mean you can't see what? Like, it's very obvious what's wrong here. But like, he, so I just remember watching that, and I was like, man, this team is like, they're bigger, they're stronger, they're more athletic. Like, they are everything that Thibs wants in this group, that group of like 9 rotation guys he had at the time, which included Grimes in that moment. But like, I know he thought Grimes was kind of like the least important part of that group. Deuce, like whatever his flaws are, you can very much see defensively, right? Like he's everything Thibs gives a shit about. He's strong as hell. He'll guard up, he'll guard down, he's tough. Like everything about this team spoke to that. And like, so your point about like Thibs proofing the roster, I mean, I don't know if you can actually Thibs proof a roster.
Right. I mean,
but in terms of like, if he's ever gonna have a group that he is like this is the group for him, this is the fucking group for him. Like this is a group of players who I think completely fit his ethos.
And can shoot. He has, I mean, I don't think like the shooting's not of that top tier that you talked about of what every lineup must do, clearly. But like he has been radicalized. He's taken the red pill on like, all right, threes.
Like, yeah, no, I mean, I think
he's modernized their shot chart. Like
he definitely at least just understands like, okay, like whether I care. This is the Popovich thing, right? You remember Pop always used to bitch about like the importance of the three. Now it's ruined the game. But it's like, when the Spurs were good and Pop wasn't washed, they were always like leading the league in corner threes and like all this type of stuff that so he could bitch about it, but he understood intrinsically like, okay, I might not like it, but this is the game and this is the math and this is what we need to do. I think Thibs, it is like, I'm sure Thibs is probably so fucking happy with the way they're officiating games right now. He's probably just like, this is real fucking ball, dude. This is what it is. This is what it was like in the 90s. But he understands he's not in the 90s. You know what I mean? He understands that.
Yeah.
And I think he deserves a lot of credit for like, because you remember when the Knicks hired him, there was all this idea of like, he's a dinosaur, the Timberwolves.
Well, there's the story about like he went on his like vision quest and he like embedded himself with multiple teams and he figured out that you should shoot 3-pointers. Like that was the takeaway. It's like, good. Wow. I'm glad. But he had to go on like an odyssey. He was tempted by the sirens who were like, shoot the mid-range. He's like, no.
That's a red herring. No, but like he does deserve a lot of credit for that because there are coaches that haven't adapted in that way. And he was seen as a dinosaur, to be fair. Like, even the stuff with his defensive scheme. I think now after 3.5, 4 years, no defense in the NBA, the modern NBA, is really perfect. Like it's impossible with the offensive talent around the league and just the way the rules are designed. And also just like, teams now, everybody knows what are good shots. So every team is hunting those high leverage shots. Everything is catered to try and hunt those shots. So like, it's just really hard to be a good defense. And if you remember, there was this theory, right, of like, oh, like his defense is now outdated and it cannot work. Mm-hmm. And my feeling was more that like, are we going to judge him because he's like the defense with fucking Wiggins and Cat and Jeff Teague and Jamal Crawford wasn't great? Like, right. I don't know. Like maybe that's, and I don't know. You've seen it now for 4 years. There have definitely been times where the Knicks defense hasn't been great. But over those 4 years, I think there's enough evidence to suggest, hey, if he has buy-in from the players and you give him the personnel that you need, that defense can still work. And it can still work at a high level. And, they were the best defense in the league in the playoffs, I believe, last year. I think we had the number 1 defensive rating. So, like, I don't know. I think that Thibs, like, again, he has a roster now that suits all of these things with him. To your point, like he's embraced 3-point shooting. He has guys that can shoot threes. He wants to be a great defensive rebounding team. They are a great defensive rebounding team. He wants to be a good offensive rebounding team. They're a good offensive rebounding team. He doesn't want to turn the ball over. They don't turn the ball over. He needs guys that can create in isolations and stuff like that. He has those guys. Like this is, if there's ever a roster that he has the, that has the mix. And of course, like to be fair to him, as much as I love Jalen Brunson, as much as you love Jalen Brunson, and as much as I've grown to appreciate Julius Randle and all this stuff, like I think it's fair to say we don't have a top 5 player in the league on the roster. So if you feel like that's a prerequisite to winning a title, fair. But I think there's a difference between I expect him to win a title and I expect for him to compete. Yeah. And I think this roster is good enough where, maybe you don't expect the title, but if they play Boston in the second round, I don't expect them to win. But if that's like a 4-game sweep and it's not close, that would concern me. That's what I would say about the roster. I think the roster is good enough where they can give anybody a fight, and that includes Boston, that includes Denver. So, and to me, those are the two best teams in the league. So,
well, that was one of the games. I guess they were coming off a back-to-back, but they destroyed Denver when they had OG in that original run, right? Didn't they beat them by like 20-something points? Sorry, yes. I just was excited that my brain still worked a little bit. I'm like, oh, that was a signature win. Still got
it. But that was probably the win of the season, right?
I mean, yeah, I think so.
And I guess to me, like, again, last night to me stood out in a different way. But that was the most dominant victory in so many ways, right? Like, it's just when you beat a team as good as Denver in the way they beat them, it just means a lot. And it was eye opening, right? It was kind of like it was a litmus test.
And anyone could have an off night, so maybe Denver wasn't their top, whatever. But like, you know, they didn't seem like they were uniquely fumbling the bag that game. It wasn't like they were dribbling it off their dick all game or anything like that, you know. So I'll give the Knicks credit. I'll be brave enough to do it on this Knicks podcast.
What?
What
are you brave enough to do?
Give the Knicks credit for beating Denver. I was saying you could argue, you know, that like maybe they didn't have their best game or whatever, Denver, that like it doesn't mean it's just one game, right? So you could be like, well, you know, Denver had an off night, but they didn't seem like they were particularly bad that game. It just seemed like the Knicks took it from them.
Yeah, for sure. Like the Knicks, I mean, you don't win by what was it, like, I don't even remember. It was like a 40-point win or something. Like, it was ridiculous with the way they beat Denver. I mean, they crushed them. And so, like, when you crush a team like that, I think it says a lot. And it just you can't win by 40 points by accident. You know what I mean? It's not like, they got hot from three. Like, oh, really? So you lost by 40 points because they got hot from three? Oh, the refs were against us. Really? So that's, if not for the refs, that would have covered the 40 points right there. But yeah, like, I don't know. I just think they've shown enough now where, and honestly, Thibs has shown enough now. Like, I've seen him adjust in games. I've seen him adapt to different opponents. And, you know, I'm happy they're getting this kind of experience right now with OG, but without Randall, because I think it's important to experiment and understand, like, the full capability of your roster. And we know, like, with Thibs, if his roster is fully healthy, he's never going to be like, this is a great this game here, this is a great opportunity for me to experiment with this thing. He's just going to be like, well, this is the best 9 guys I have. We're going to play them against the Detroit Pistons tonight.
And he's also like, you can always do something better, right? So he just wants to like work on perfecting the things that he wants them to do. Like, he's not trying to have the most varied bag. He's just trying to have it be like the most pristine. You know what I mean? It's like,
he's not worried about pivots. He's worried about like
execution.
Right. He's just like, I don't care about. I think he's one of these.
It's not the scheme. You didn't do it well enough. Like, that's always like it's like kind of the energy he has. I don't know if you would say that, but like, you know, that's. I feel like he's kind of said things like that in the past.
He's definitely like a football coach that's just like, I don't care if they have 9 men in the box. If we block this up, we can run for 5 yards here. It's like, all right, but like, what if we passed it? I don't care. I don't want to do that.
So we
could throw an interception. We could throw an interception.
He falls in full bloom love with Daniel Jones at the Senior Bowl. Is that Thibs?
But I do think, like, I don't know. I mean, you were at the game yesterday. You saw it very visibly. The numbers bear it out. The Knicks offense all year has cratered in the minutes that Brunson's not on the floor. Yeah. Even when they had Quick and RJ, those units were better, but they were still not good offensively. Even when they've had Randall on the floor without Brunson, those units haven't been good offensively. And which has gotten me thinking, like, all right, as much as I love this team and I think they are a contender, you always have to look to add talent. You know what I mean? Like, you can never be like, oh, well, our team is perfect. No need to do anything. Like, you always have to add talent. 2 years ago, the Knicks were obviously heavily in pursuit of Donovan Mitchell. Doesn't happen. He goes to Cleveland. I think the Knicks made the right call then. I think that deal would have been too expensive. But he might be on the market again this summer. And watching this team, and especially those non-Brunson minutes, are illuminating to me. And I want to get your thoughts on this, because one of the main concerns, right, about pairing Brunson and Donovan Mitchell together is like, well, it's a small backcourt. How are you going to match up? Well, the Knicks have done a little bit of a proof of concept of this by starting Dante DiVincenzo at the 2.
Yeah.
And since they've gone OG, they've basically, when they have OG on the floor, even with that small ass backcourt, they're the best defense in the NBA by like far, but it's not close. Yeah. I think I saw a stat today. They have a 91.8 defensive rating when OG's on the floor. And the best defensive rating in the league this year is like Minnesota at 108 point something. I can look it up.
Oh, you know what? Sorry to interrupt you, but watching OG play, really like being that close to, I was like looking at his face and like he just seemed smart. Like I was watching him like process like on defense, and like the way like he seemed like a computer. Like he was just like over here, like scanning, like threat detected. Like he was like, there's some guys you look at them when they're on the court and like they've got the blank, nothing's going on upstairs vibe, and he just seems the opposite. Like it was cool to see that up close. Like he definitely was like watching the whole court, was not overwhelmed looking ever. He was just like he just looked so calm and so smart. I know it's a very like woo thing or whatever, but I don't know. Like I like to, like you meet someone for the first time and before they even open their mouth, sometimes you're like, oh, you're stupid, just by the way they look. Like, this was the opposite. I'm like, oh, this guy's like a smart defender. He's not just like toolsy or whatever. Like he's using his brain out there, which like is not a shock, but like seeing it in person, I was like, oh yeah, like he's all over this. Like
he like thinks he also, I mean, he's
thinking out there. Not an overthink,
Is this, I don't know if this is noticeable when you're watching him live, but like, is he also just like because he measures it like he's like 6'7", he's got a 7-foot wingspan. He looks bigger than that though. Does it seem like he's bigger than that when you're watching him?
Yeah, it does. He's a specimen. And he's also just got this like, speaking of like being smart, he's got this kind of like, you're almost like, is he slow when you watch him? And then you realize he's more like old man playing racquetball, where he's just like, he's not moving if he doesn't have to. Do you know what I mean? Like he's not spastic at all. Like he's just very smooth. And he's like, okay, I'll go over there if I need to, but like I'm not gonna like Bojan, in contrast, on defense is like doing this weird pitter patter thing with his feet to like prove that he's trying. Maybe and you're like, yo, relax. Like you don't need to be like dancing around like that. Yes, it's good to move your feet, but yeah. Anyway, no wasted motion for OG.
Yeah. No, so what I was going to say is like, so you did this proof of concept with Dante.
Yeah.
Obviously, the defense is held up, especially with OG on the floor. Like, do you think, given, again, the struggles the team has had offensively without Brunson on the floor and all that stuff, do you think, like, because I'm at the point where it feels like the Knicks are definitely looking to make a big swing this offseason.
Yeah.
It feels like the two names that will be out there, whether they get traded or not, who knows? But the guys that feels like will be floated around are Joel Embiid and Donovan Mitchell. And I know Donovan Mitchell has a knee thing he's dealing with right now, but given all the injury stuff with Embiid, and also just given the kind of like roster construction we have right now, I don't know, man. I really feel like Donovan Mitchell, like now that we've built out this roster and built the depth out and had added these various pieces, I kind of feel like now is actually the right moment to go for Donovan Mitchell versus, a few years ago where it felt like, do we even have enough in place right now to do this? And now I feel like, yeah, I think we do. And now I think we can, and he's also played well defensively in Cleveland alongside another small guard like Garland. So there's a little bit more proof of concept on his end too. I don't know. Like, what do you think about that? Or do you think they don't really need to take a bigger swing?
I'm definitely Mitchell over Embiid. My only Mitchell concern would be like, what would it take to get him? There's always a point at which it's too much. I don't 100% know his like contract. He's a restricted free agent, or is he
No, he's
straight up?
unrestricted. He's unrestricted.
He's an unrestricted. So they'd have to. Would that be like how would that be a sign and trade? Would they just have to like dump guys to?
No, I mean, you could just trade for him. He's entering the last year of his contract
before the contract ends in like July or whatever it is, or like how like do people? This is the shit that like. Well, I don't care at all about as a basketball fan. It's like I didn't get into it for like the cap and roster machinations.
So you're like, a casual. You're a casual.
I'm a casual. Yeah, I just it's like, can you go over your left shoulder fadeaway turnaround? Can you go over your right shoulder fadeaway turnaround? Can you shoot from the mid range? Can you? He's what is the most common way people would say like he would get here? Like what would that look like? Do you know? Is that like a thing that's out there?
So I have to look at his number, but his phone number. His phone number, which I have obviously. Nice. Me and Donovan, we're talking. We chat sometimes. So Donovan Mitchell is entering. Let me just check. His contract, blah 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 blah. The great spotrack.com. All right, so he's under contract for next year at $34.8 million. He's at 32.6 right now. He's a player option in 2025-26 for 37, which seems very unlikely he will take.
So he's under contract next year, and then he's an unrestricted. Right. Okay. I thought it was this offseason. That's why I was confused.
No.
All right, so you're definitely trading for him if you get him. Okay.
And I just feel like, look, I love Mitch, and I love Lamp. Obviously. No, I love Mitch. Bogdanovich exists on this team right now because of his contract. Like,
he's the Fournier replacement. Yes.
Yeah, we know this. Mitch and Bogdanovich is basically enough money. They obviously, who knows if they want Mitch, but I think you can shop Mitch, get a third team involved, get a contract in there, whatever it is, and send that to Cleveland. Like, to me, that's like the framework right there. Where it's like, all right, these are salaries we're willing to move. Now, however you want to sweeten that, you can sweeten it. Like, for example, okay, I like Deuce. Deuce can go, especially because we know that if you trade for Donovan Mitchell, the backup point guard becomes Donovan Mitchell.
Right.
Like, that's how that works. If Cleveland was like, we don't want Mitchell Robinson, we want Dante DiVincenzo, I mean, I'm probably willing to do that. Because I'd be like, okay, like, Mitchell is better than Dante. And he can actually run point when Brunson's on the bench. So, again, makes sense to me. Like, I just think there's so many scenarios and so many packages the Knicks have available to them, be it combined with players and picks, that, like, if you can get him, I've now moved into the camp of, like, I think if the Knicks can get him, they should get him. Because I think him, Brunson, I mean, again, the whole thing that we have to wait to see is Randall in the playoffs. Assuming Randall plays well in the playoffs, like him, I mean, Brunson, Mitchell, OG, Randall, let's say Hartenstein, or Mitchell Robinson, doesn't matter. And then like Hart off the bench, you can figure out the bench, right? The bench is whatever. You can figure that out. To me, that's like a contending team. That's like right there. And that is a ton of firepower. I think they're tough to match up with. I don't know. I would roll the dice. I think that's worth it. I think this is like, you're in a point in time where this is clearly kind of what you've been waiting for to be this good. Mm-hmm. And this is what you've been saving your picks for.
Yeah.
I don't know how much more time you can wait because the Knicks are really good. So their picks don't have a lot of value now, right? Especially not the ones that are like the next year, 2 years, 3 years. You kind of have to strike when you can strike. And if Mitchell's available in the last year of his contract, and let's say he goes to Cleveland's management, he's like, listen, I'm not extending here. And I want to go to New York. And I'm going to go to New York. So you can either trade me and get shit for me, or I'll figure out a way to get there however. And
I don't know. Their insane owner might write like another Comic Sans letter and be like, "Fuck Donovan Mitchell, I'm not trading you." Like especially if the Knicks spank them again in the playoffs, and like he takes it personally against his manhood because he's like a maniac.
He will. We will win a championship before Donovan Mitchell does. Look,
I'm
I
not going to
don't know.
trade Mitchell. I'm going to start another housing crisis and profit off of it, and you're all going to work for me one day. Like,
yeah,
Dan Gilbert.
I don't know. I to me, it's just like because I don't think. To me, Embiid just really, I can't do the Embiid thing. He's the
He's a
torn
loser.
meniscus, and you not even forget the loser.
He's an unserious bozo.
Yeah.
No, he's not it. He's a goofy loser.
He's
I
spent
don't
too much
want
time
him.
with Ben Simmons early in his career. Unfortunately.
Yeah, podcasts are boring when you agree with each other, but like I'm with you 100% on Donovan Mitchell. It was not right to do it when they didn't do it. Now it definitely is under the frameworks that you talked about. And Deuce, love him, but he looked like IQ in the playoffs yesterday. He was he looked like he was gonna cry a couple times when Davion Mitchell was guarding him. I was like, oh man, this is like
he's got to shoot. He just shoot like he had a couple he caught a couple of chances to shoot, and he's just like pump fakes, and then he like dribbles the ball out with under like 4 seconds left, and he's like, oh shit, here, Josh Hart.
Like, right? Yeah, they're hitting each other grenades. Yeah,
and all the vets on the team are like, you fucking asshole, man. Are you kidding me right now?
He just looked a little too flustered. I mean, he's young and he hasn't had a lot of minutes and everything, so I'm not going to say his career's over or whatever. His
career's over. I mean, we can write it off. Another L for Leon Rose.
He's not the backup point guard of the future. Like,
no, he has a skill set. His skill set is he can defend the point of attack really well and he can knock down threes. If you're right now, at least, if you're like, hey, we need you to run offense, he's like.
Yeah, and he's got the most riz, as the kids say.
Yeah, he does.
He's got style.
Have the most riz. Good aura. What is it in
his aura will feed families. I hate the feed families thing, by the way. That's like my boomer slang take of the day.
What is it in Moneyball where they're just sitting around and he's like, he's got a hot girlfriend. What is that? He's like, what the fuck does that mean? Yeah. That's probably how they were like, all right, should we extend Deuce? Wes is just in the fucking boardroom and he's like, he's got a fucking hot girlfriend. What? Wes? Yeah. Just extend him. It's fine.
I did not see Wes yesterday, but last year I saw him in the exclusive courtside pregame club and fist bumped him. Yeah, he saw me. Well, he walks in, he points at me. I'm like, wait, who is this guy? And I'm looking at him, and I'm like, oh, it's Worldwide Wes. And then I realized I'm covered in head to toe in Knicks gear. And he walks by me, and like I fist bump him. And I'm still I'm speechless. And then he's passed me already. And I'm like, thanks for my cue. And he's like, yeah, okay. Don't we're done here.
See, when you tell that story, you just gotta act like Wes knew you.
But it was weird. Speaking of, I think I had a little bit of an edible that day. This guy walks in and just points at me. I'm like, wait, is that Worldwide Wes pointing at me? What is happening here?
This white guy from fucking Jersey?
Yeah, hi. Oh, yeah. Now I know why you're familiar. Because I stalked you online and I made an emoji for the Discord of your face.
Dude, it's a good emoji. The Wes emoji is a good one.
Yeah.
So, we're 4 years in to the Leon Rose Thibs thing.
Yeah.
Is this as good as you think it could be at this point in time? Because that's kind of where I'm at. Where I'm like, it's not perfect. Obviously, there's shit they need to get better at and improve and add talent to. But and have they fucked stuff up? Sure, yeah, they fuck stuff up. Everybody fucks stuff up. But I think if you had told me 4 years ago, I'd have been like, yeah, I'll take that. That sounds great. I'll do that. Is this as good as you would have hoped for it to be? Or are there things that you're still kind of like, I'm not sure about this, I'm not sure about that?
With Rose, no. I think this is 99th percentile outcome or whatever. All the so-called mistakes are the kinds of stuff that just literally no one can pick every player perfectly. Not everyone hits. That's just the reality. But any reasonable expectation for how they've built the roster, he's surpassed. They draft well. They do all the smart nerdy shit that I don't care about when it comes to cap management. Even Thibs, I would have fired him 2 years ago, but it seems that wasn't the right time now. I can't complain that he's still here. And I also am not someone who thinks that like he's his boy and will never fire him. Like everyone has an expiration date, first of all. Like he's not going to be the GM forever, although, you know, inshallah, he's the GM for the rest of my life.
As a devout Muslim, obviously.
Yeah. Ramadan Mubarak, by the way, to everyone out there. Is Ramadan still happening?
I believe so.
Okay.
So, yes.
No, he what was I gonna say before I like made like it wasn't a racist joke, I promise.
You can trust him.
It's funny for me to wish someone that because I know like nothing about Muslim culture, but I respect. So if it's him or Thibs, like Thibs.
Well, I'm not saying I don't even think it needs to be an answer.
No, I'm saying like at some point, like, but also like like these kind of guys, the guy who becomes the number one agent at CAA or like is like he's not the sentimental guy. If he thinks he needs to fire him for the team to take the next step, like I think he's going to. I guess you could wonder like if he knows ball enough to realize that, like maybe that's the concern. But I'm not like one of these people who's like, Thibs is his boy, like he's never gonna fire him. Like, yes, he will. Like if he really thinks he needs to, he will. It would just be like, do you think because you have
the bar is definitely higher though for like because it's obvious that and rightfully so. I think he knows Thibs gives you baseline competence.
Yeah.
He knows that Thibs is serious and that if you bring in the right personalities to play for him, like your team will be serious. They like even like our bad year under Thibs, right? We're in 2021-22. We were 37-45. You know what I mean? Right. Like we were not like
that was like a great year for Carmelo Anthony's Knicks, Go. Melo would have demanded they raise his jersey to the rafters like during the 37-win season. He would have been like, "Come on, I have no help. Look at my bag; it's so deep.
I know who I am at the elbow.
My hooping is so pure."
I love how like he has a podcast now, so he can just talk about all the stupid bullshit that he actually thinks. So he's always just like, this guy is just he's a bucket, bro. I'm like,
yeah,
Kobe Bryant, yeah, like.
And I like that he's still living in the past because it means I can still shit on him, and it's not like it's fair game, like because he's still litigating his legacy out there, So I'm like, all right, let's go.
Let's do it.
I'm here to hate on you for as long as you want to do this, Melo.
Can we talk about your biggest current Melo pet peeve?
My biggest current Melo pet peeve?
That he's like obviously angling to get his jersey retired.
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, I was just kind of referencing it, but like, what a joke. Like, no one has deserved to get their jersey retired less in Knicks history. Like, I'd rather have Herb Williams' jersey retired before Melo's. Like, what did he do here? He got to the second round? Are you kidding me? Like, we should retire Dante's jersey for like being second in the league and 3-pointing for a couple. 3-1 shooting for a couple months. Like, what a joke! Like, because you gutted it out to play in an all-star game at home. Like, is that your like what we're raising? Because you gutted the entire team to come here and threatened to go to the fucking Nets. Kiss my ass, Melo. You bum. You seem like a nice human being, though.
He does seem like well-adjusted. Like
he seems like a nice guy and a great dad and all these other things and like a good friend.
Maybe not
a great husband.
Maybe not. Just the one fatal flaw of his.
Lala's married. I'm not. That is an elite quote. That's the one thing I would consider hanging his jersey in the rafters for.
Well, also the risk it all picture.
And the risk it all picture. Yeah, but they should put him in that like stupid little Hall of Fame they have like in like the upper deck somewhere in the garden. Have you ever seen that?
No.
It's like really in the nose. It's like if you like wander through a couple of like dark alleyways in the nosebleeds, there's this like weird Knicks Hall of Fame that's like a hallway that has like some pictures and like
Clyde doesn't even know it's up there.
And
Clyde's
some jerseys of like losers of Melo's caliber who are like, all right, we're not going to retire your jersey, but you're in this little hallway.
So they put like they've got like Allen Houston's.
Yeah. They've got a picture of the basketball bouncing 9 times off the rim before it went in that Miami game.
He meant to do that. He's like, if I bounce it off the rim enough times, they'll only have 0.6 of a second left. This is perfect.
Shouts to Allen Houston, though. Clearly one of the greatest ballers of all time, as all Knicks fans say.
He's just a pure
right,
hooper.
Mike Plu.
The thing that people don't get is he's just a bucket.
Yeah.
Houston
they don't understand that. Yeah,
they don't get it. They don't get it. You can't get that staring at your Excel spreadsheets and looking at your TI-83 calculator. You can only get that by watching grainy YouTube videos.
It is funny because he was like the most sauceless athlete ever. Like he was such like a straight up and down kind of guy. Like
if he played today though, he'd be so much better because they would be like, you need to take like 12 threes a game. What the fuck are you doing? Back in like 98, they were like, all right, so we want you to exclusively post up 16 feet out on the block, and we're just gonna let you cook. That was it. Yeah. That was our offense. The Knicks offense for like 4 years under Van Gundy was it was like Houston, Ewing, LJ, and Sprewell taking turns isolating from the same exact areas of the floor. That's it. Yeah, that's all it was.
Ewing is my ultimate, like, if he played in today's game, like, he'd be, like, even so much better because he had
especially
a sweet
before
shot.
the injuries. Especially before the injuries.
Yeah. But, like, he would have won any Embiid MVP would have gone to Patrick Ewing. That's for sure. He would have shit all over that loser. But he'd be raining threes.
I mean, a lot of those big guys would be, right? I mean, it's just like the center is actually the one position where I don't think like I do think there's some validity to the idea of X player back then couldn't play today. I think there's more nuance within that. Like,
it depends.
you don't have the sports science. Those guys didn't grow up with the same amenities. So there's different stuff. But like centers, I'm just like, no, I'm pretty sure like Ewing, Hakeem, Shaq, David Robinson, fucking all these guys that were great centers, they'd probably be fine in today's league also. Like, I mean, I know it's a tough ask, but I do think that Shaq could handle Domantas Sabonis. Like, I'm not sure, but I think he'd be able to hold his own there.
I mean, Domantas' dad, if he came over too, like in his prime, he would have been sick. Like he could shoot. He was skilled. All these guys, like, they just weren't allowed to shoot. Like, I'm sure some of them would have also been able to bomb from deep. You're saying different, like with Shaq, like obviously he would just body everyone still. But like some of these guys would extend their range, like for sure.
Do you think that Shaq would have extended his range?
No, that's what I'm saying. Like 100% not Shaq.
We need you to space out to the corner here. What? I have a question for you. Going back to the game, we can probably kind of close with this.
Yeah.
So obviously, De'Aaron Fox and Jalen Brunson, both All-Stars, both likely to be All-NBA guards. That game is on De'Aaron Fox's home court. Sabonis is another All-Star who weirdly has been getting MVP buzz for some reason. I'm like, are you fucking kidding me?
That's a joke.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
He scored 0 points in the second half, or like 3. Like, get out of here.
Yeah. Did you feel like that Brunson played like he had something to prove? And also, like, I mean, was it palpable? I know you were saying you didn't really like follow the actual, box score or whatever.
Right. Yeah.
But like, was it palpable watching that game? Like, was it one of those things where you could tell Kings fans were like, please don't, like, this guy is killing us. Like, was it obvious he was the best player on the floor? It's kind of like
like honestly, like it barely registered that Fox was out there to me. I don't know how many points he scored or whatever, but he didn't
have a good game. He had 20.
He had 20. He looked outclassed by Brunson, like 100%. And I was like, oh yeah. Every once in a while, like obviously he's fast as hell. He'd like blow someone by.
Yeah, he's funny. He's a fun player too.
He created an advantage. I'd be like, oh yeah, he's here. But like he wasn't. I mean, to me, it was clear that Brunson was the better player. I mean, obviously a game is a game. It's one game, whatever. But like in that game, it wasn't even close. And I think Brunson did look like he had a chip on his shoulder. I think he's looked like that kind of all year, though. Like it seemed like an extension of that. But yeah, like looking at it up close, he definitely. And I think I saw in Discord you're like he needs to stop complaining about fouls early or whatever, which is like true. That stuff isn't good.
Well, it's
but he was getting fouled on like every play, like he was, and it's like and that just goes back to that. I don't want to get caught up in the ref shit again, but it was like last year when they told Julius, it's like, well, you can play through the fouls, so they're not fouls. You're like, what? Like, when is it? You just arbitrarily decide if it's affecting me or not. But yeah, so I think I think Brunson is annoyed by the fouls. I think he is someone who is never going to say this, but I get the sense that he feels like he doesn't have the respect that some of these guys do, among commentators, among fans, among guys who cover the league. Because when you look at what he's doing, he's clearly one of the top point guards in the league. And there's some noise about it this year, but it's not the same as it would be if it was who's that bozo with the guns in Memphis?
John Morant.
If it was John Morant in New York, he'd be talked about in a way that Brunson is not being talked about, even though Brunson has earned it.
Yeah, I mean, it's weird to say, and Brunson in 2024 is a better player right now this season than Steph Curry, and I think he's been better than guys like a guy like Kevin Durant. And I don't know what it takes for these voters and stuff like that to kind of adjust their mindsets, but I've seen people talk about Zach Lowe, he's talked about the Lakers are gonna have 2 and the Suns are gonna have 2 All-NBA guys, and it's well, why? If they have 2 All-NBA guys, shouldn't they be better? And if they're not, then they shouldn't have 2 fucking All-NBA guys. I don't know. It's just crazy to think last year when we signed Brunson, you're thinking all right, the Knicks have a solid point guard now. Maybe he can average, if he averages 22, 6 and whatever, that's good for us. And he comes in, he's doing that, he's playing well, but it's he just keeps pushing it further and further and further. And it's at a point, you just have to stop putting a ceiling on him and just see where it goes. And it's weird because I just feel he's the one. I mean, I'm sure everybody feels this way about their players. But it does feel in this group of stars in the NBA, he's the one. He seems like this one guy who at what is he? He's 27, I think now. Who for some reason is constantly discussed only in terms of what his ceiling is, even though he also is constantly pushed beyond what consensus said his ceiling was at a point in time. Last year it was well, he's not better than Donovan Mitchell, and it's well, why though? He smoked him in the playoffs when he was with Dallas, and then he smoked him again with New York. It's maybe he is better. I'm not saying it's necessarily that simple either, but
sure,
it's not some crazy thing. It's not an idea oh, how could you say that? I don't know, because Donovan Mitchell isn't Michael Jordan. Is it okay for me to say that?
He might need to change his haircut. He's got that little bug braids thing going on that I think I don't know.
He does always look like he smells bad.
He's got hairier shoulders than you might realize too, so that might be it.
Yeah, that's definitely part of it. If he had Josh Hart's Riz, maybe that would be
that could be it. Yeah.
So if Josh was really a good friend, they would do the face-off thing.
Oh, that's a good point. Overrated movie, but good point.
He's just going to do a bunch of blow, and he's going to be I want to take his face off.
I have not listened to their podcast yet. I don't really do athlete podcasts much.
I'll watch the clips. I'll listen to the clips. I'm not listening to a full pod of them talking about Villanova.
Right.
Oh yeah, dude. So this one time at Villanova, we were lifting weights. Cool. Great.
We had so many antics in our dorm. It was crazy.
Remember that one time we were hanging out with all these groupies? I mean, our friends. I'm married. I'm just kidding. I would never do that. I've been with my girlfriend since high school. Sure, buddy. Whatever you got to tell yourself. Oh, man. Did you get a chance to? You didn't. What did you do before the game? So you're there before the game. You did it early. You got a chance
Yeah.
to see like some extended workouts and stuff, or
No, I was making sure to get as many free drinks and food as possible in like the
you were reviewing the amenities of the Golden One
yes.
Center.
It was in the one row club is what they call it, only for
Nice.
people who sit courtside. Yeah, and then I was getting a to-go drink and being like, "Come on, the game's about to start. Give me my last to-go drink," because they give it to you in like really nice. Like I was getting old-fashioned, and so they give it to you in like a really nice glass. But then like they don't let you take a glass out onto the court. I should have tried to smuggle it. Like, we've had to stop the game. Someone's dropped a glass onto the court. It's shattered, and Jalen Brunson has like twisted his Achilles by accident.
Did you see that kid that threw the plastic ball or something on the court?
Yeah, he was like 4 rows down from me, 4 chairs down from me. I started booing him. His parents were like, "What are you doing?"
Wait, were you actually?
Yeah. He was literally like 4 seats down from me, or like 5 seats down from me, because they were handing out all these balls, and like there were a bunch of kids in the first row for some reason, just a real waste. I wouldn't take my daughter to these seats. She wouldn't appreciate it. And yeah, like the game started, and he immediately just chucked it onto the court. And I thought I was being humorous, and I was like, "Boo!"
The kid started crying. They showed it on TV. He was like crying.
Oh, wait, what, did he really?
Yes. So you made this kid cry? Are you kidding me?
No, that wasn't me. It was someone else.
Yeah, I know. I didn't boo him. I was kidding. It was a joke. It's a joke. Come on. Oh man. All right, James.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Your time. Appreciate your you being our correspondent from Sacramento. Did you guys spend the night in Sacramento?
No. One of the good things about your wife being pregnant is that she's a default designated driver. So we just came right back. About an hour and 20 minutes. Oh, she was really happy with me. I tried to turn the TV off last night by unplugging it. She's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "I'm turning the TV off." So that's where I was by the time we got home.
You got a couple roadies for you?
I was drinking right up until the buzzer. I'll put it that way.
So you remember the game vividly.
Oh yeah. When I was watching the replay of Malik Monk barreling into me this morning, I was like, "Oh, he really did like fall on me." Like I thought like he was kind of like right next to me, but he went right at me, and I had to like shove him off.
Oh man.
Yeah.
All right, James. Appreciate your time. Let people know they can find you, and plug anything that you'd like to plug.
You guys should all be paying full price for NBA 2K. I know it's on sale, but if I were you, I would look for a version that gives you extra VC. Spend a couple $100, make a couple builds, and I'm the Irishman he on Twitter. That's it.
Yeah. Well, definitely worth mentioning that on the oft rare occasions that James does tweet, it's definitely worth it to give him a follow. Aside from that, I have nothing to plug. I'm just going to plug all the way to Strickland. If you have not watched this game yet for some fucking reason, definitely watch it. If you already have, rewatch it. I don't know. Worth your time. Hell of a game. Knicks play Golden State tomorrow, Monday. That game is on ESPN. It's a national game again. If the Knicks can win that'd be great. They'd seal a winning record on this road trip. They put them at 3-0. And they have the Nuggets on Thursday. So, again, I have nothing to plug, so I'll just plug the work at Strickland. Thank you again to our sponsors, both BetOnline and Cut. That's our show for today. I hope everybody has a great week, and I will see you on Friday.